Sound check 1 2 3. Sound check 1 2 3.
Welcome, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of our Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee to order. Just a reminder that all electronic devices are to be switched to a non-audible function during our committee meetings. As we just note that quorum is present. We'll start with our roll call. So as I announce the names, if I can just get you to turn your microphones on and acknowledge your presence. Councillor Cameron Kretsch.
I'm here.
Karen Burke.
Present.
Graham Carroll.
Present.
Lynn Lundstedt.
Present.
Andy McLaren. Andrew Douglas.
Here.
Stefan Spalnick.
Present.
Thank you, everyone. We'll move to our approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda today?
Yes, we have several changes to today's agenda, Madam Chair. Under staff presentations, we have the recommendation to designate 1166 Garner Road West in Ancaster, which is the Shaver Homestead, under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, PED 24026 in Ward 12. Under consent items, we have 9.2 Education and Communication Working Group meeting notes of January 3rd. We have the Policy and Design Working Group meeting notes of January 22nd. And under item 12, notices of motion, we have 12.1, correspondence in support of an extension of the deadline in subsection 2716 of the Ontario Heritage Act with respect to the removal of listed non-designated properties from the municipal heritage registers, and that we've had a request to waive the rules so that the motion will be introduced today. We have a withdrawn delegation, Mr. Robert Hoffman, Hamilton Health Services, Juravinsky Redevelopment Project. The request has been withdrawn by Mr. Hoffman, but he is present today in case there are questions asked directly of him.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I see Karen and I see Graham.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed to those changes? Seeing none, that item is carried. Are there any declarations of interest today? Go ahead, Lorraine.
Tom, hello and welcome. It's Lorraine from the clerk's office. I'm going to ask you to just turn off your video for now, and if there are questions of you, we'll ask you to speak up.
And we had, just to clarify, we had no declarations of interest there. Under our approval of minutes from a previous meeting, we have our meeting minutes of January 26, 2024. If there's no questions, may I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Do we have a mover and a seconder?
I see Stefan and I see Lynn.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Our communication items, we have before us item 5.1, which is the notice of passing bylaw number 24-007 to designate 7 Ravenscliffe Avenue in Hamilton under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, with the recommendation to be received. And item 5.2 is the notice of passing of bylaw number 24-010 to designate 54 and 56 Hess Street South in Hamilton under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, again with a recommendation to be received. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive both of those items?
I see Councillor Kretsch and I see Andrew Douglas.
And as we move to vote, is there any questions or is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. So we now move on to our delegations. So before we begin, I'm just going to clarify the roles of the delegates that are here today respecting the Cultural Heritage Evaluation for Juravinsky Hospital in Hamilton. So we have Hayden Bulbrook will be representing Timmins Martel Heritage Consultants. We have David Addington is representing Infrastructure Ontario. We have Robert Hoffman and Tom Perry representing Hamilton Health Sciences, who are here in case there's any questions from our committee. And before we move into those delegation presentations, can I also have a mover and a seconder to extend the presentation times for our delegations? They have made that request.
Sorry, I see Karen and I see Graham.
Is there anyone opposed to that extension? Seeing none, that item is carried. So we will receive all the delegations at the end of the presentation. The additional documentation will be received as part of those delegations. So we will now hear from Hayden Bulbrook from Timmins Martel Heritage Consultants.
Good afternoon. Now, may I suggest that David Addington could go first, just for the presentation's purpose?
Certainly, if you'd rather David go first, we can do that. David, are you fine with that?
Definitely. That's great. Yeah, 'cause I'm sort of providing an overview of the report, and Hayden's going to talk more about the content.
Okay, that's good.
All right. Well, thanks for meeting with us today. It's good to be back in front of the Hamilton Heritage Committee. It's been a little while, but I see some familiar faces, which is good to see as well. So today I'm here representing Infrastructure Ontario. My name is Dave Addington, like you heard. And the purpose of our delegation today is to provide an overview of a cultural heritage evaluation, also known as a CHER or share, that is being done for the Juravinski Hospital property at 711 Concession Street in Hamilton. And just as a brief background, IO, so Infrastructure Ontario IO, is working with Hamilton Health Sciences on a proposed expansion of the hospital property. Oh, sorry, I think I still need to share my presentation. Let me just grab that first. Can you see that okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you,
Okay.
David.
Okay, perfect. So as part of the early stages of this initiative, IO is assisting with project planning by undertaking due diligence activities, which includes conducting the cultural heritage evaluation for the property. And so, as you're all likely aware, the city has already flagged the potential cultural heritage value of the hospital property by listing it on the city's heritage register. And so the purpose of the current cultural heritage evaluation is essentially to dig a little bit deeper by thoroughly researching the property's history to help evaluate and identify the property's potential cultural heritage significance and to help inform project planning for the hospital project. So to that end, IO has retained heritage consultants Team 8C. So you saw Hayden earlier on, and he'll be speaking after me, to prepare the cultural heritage evaluation report. Because the report was procured by O, which is a provincial public body, the heritage evaluation followed the provincial standards and guidelines for the conservation of heritage properties. So essentially, these guidelines promote public engagement and comprehensive research to be included in the completion of the report. Also, there are two main differences in this provincial form of report from that which the Heritage Committee is most likely familiar with. So first of all, one is that this report, you may have already noticed this, comes in two separate but linked documents. The first document is the Cultural Heritage Evaluation Report, the share, which I mentioned earlier. And this contains all the primary and secondary research and should be mostly fact-based information. The second related document is the Cultural Heritage Evaluation Recommendations Report. So just the same name with an extra R for recommendations. And this contains the consultant's evaluation of the property that is based on the research provided in the first report. So this second document can be thought of more as a judgment based on the facts that are presented in the first document, the share. And the second significant difference is that this report doesn't contain a heritage impact assessment of any proposed development concept. This impact assessment would come later in a separate document once a development concept evolves. And so the share that we're looking at today is only looking to establish a foundation of knowledge to understand what the heritage significance of the site actually is. So today we're looking to formally introduce to the Heritage Committee the draft Cultural Heritage Evaluation that was completed by Team 8C in late 2023, and to solicit any feedback that can be considered by from the Heritage Committee that can be considered by Team 8C in the report. So as we noted before, Hayden from Team 8C is here today, and he'll present a summary of the content of the report after me. And also, as we noted, Tom and Bob from Hamilton Health Sciences are also on hand today, and they're available to answer any questions if required. And so that's all for my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Do we have any questions before we move on at this point? So maybe Hayden, if you can now provide us with your presentation.
So just let me know if you can see the screen that I just shared.
Yep, no, we can see that fine.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Aidan Bobrick, as stated, and I am on the Cultural Heritage team with UHC out of London, Ontario. And as David has noted, put together the evaluation report. So our main purpose today is to share the information and findings to date that we have on the Derwentski Hospital property here in Hamilton. And of course, all of you are, I'm sure, quite familiar with this property, being in a very prominent position in the city. But this is just a bit of a little overview. Its situation in the neighborhood. And in 2010, a cultural heritage evaluation was conducted on the property. This was limited to the nurse's residence, which has since been demolished. There was mention of the maternity ward in the report. The main focus there was noting to undergo further research of this building, and it also acknowledged that the maternity ward is expressive of its architecture and is regarded as a familiar landmark on Brown. Also, as it's been touched upon, in February 2021, the City of Hamilton listed the property at 7-Eleven concession on the Register of Cultural Heritage Resources. And the focus of this listing was, in fact, the and just to place it in a bit more historical context, this property was very rural before the First World War. It was actually development began on the property during the First World War. And in 1932, the maternity ward and the powerhouse were first constructed. They were later opened in 1938. Hospital operations commenced during the Great Depression. And these are the oldest buildings basically left. Yes, the earlier First World War era property, have since been abolished, and we've seen great expansion in the post-Second World War period, as well as in the late 20th and early 21st century. And both of these are fairly common occurrences.
Hayden, it's Lorraine here from the clerk's office, and pardon the interruption. Can I ask you to shut your video off, because I think we're having a connection problem with you, and which means that we're not hearing you clearly, and so sometimes turning off your video can improve the sound.
Please try that.
Thank you very much. And now we just need you to reshare your presentation with us.
Okay, would you like me to start from the beginning?
No,
Was it
no,
lagging the whole time, or okay? All right.
Just start where you were at.
Okay, great.
We certainly heard what you said. It was just breaking up a little bit in between. So,
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So just summarizing this part, there's been considerable development that's occurred in the post-Second World War period and late 20th century, 21st.
Hayden, can you try sharing your screen again? We can't see the video. Image.
Oh, what happened here? Thank you very much, Hayden. That works perfectly.
Right. So moving on to the preliminary evaluation, which is kind of a big part of this presentation. I've just provided an inset here just to show a bit better of the features on the property that we've identified for potential CHI or cultural heritage value or interest. So of course, this being a fairly large property, northwest end of the property. We used Ontario Regulation 906 as amended 56922 to determine a preliminary evaluation of the property. This of course touches upon the design and physical value, these historical and associative value. And with our preliminary evaluation, we've determined that the application of the Art Deco, Edwardian classicism, and modern classicism found on the maternity wing building and the powerhouse are not frequently employed in institutional buildings and are certainly rare in Hamilton. And these buildings certainly express these differing eclectic architectural styles. The historical and associative value is extended to the maternity wing and its healthcare services that it's provided to the city of Hamilton, and it's part of the Hamilton and Durbinski Hospitals contribution to healthcare in the city of Hamilton for now over a century. We've also recognized associative value for the property's connection to Nora Francis Henderson and to Charles Durbinski more recently, and historical value because the maternity wing and the powerhouse demonstrate designs of prominent Hamilton architect William Palmer. And with the contextual, recognized the maternity wing and powerhouse are contextually linked to the escarpment, or locally as the Hamilton Mountain in this area. And these buildings on the property are considered landmarks. So again, this is through the 906 evaluation, and we've determined preliminary evaluation that 7 out of 9 criteria were met, or in other words, a fairly quite strong evaluation of the property. Property with it having this provincial connection to it, it was evaluated under Reg 1006, which is the criteria for determining cultural heritage value or interest of provincial significance. With our evaluation, our preliminary evaluation, we determined that the property does not meet Reg 1006 criteria. We've concluded 2 phases of community and public engagement, and both were helpful to inform and provide feedback on the share that we provided. And our next steps now, as David alluded to, are considering and addressing the feedback in the report and potentially updating the report. So that concludes my presentation, and thank you very much, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you both for the presentations again. So if we have any questions of our delegations, any questions or additional feedback, Karen?
Thank you. Through the chair, I read through both the extensive reports, and I thought they were really interesting. I was intrigued by the point that said in 1950, with the delivery of 5,353 babies, it was the busiest maternity ward in North America. And I was wondering whether that fact helps address some criteria in regulation, the 1006, in terms of, it's got a, importance to the province. I mean, if we had the most rate of babies being born, I think that's really interesting. And, or, where else? Strong in, with the community that is found in, more than one part of the province, but actually in all of North America. I think it's an interesting thing to point out, and maybe that would help if you wanted to look about having provincial importance as well. Thank you.
Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah. I'm obviously the one who wrote the initial evaluation on the property and just forgetting designated. So I'm really hoping that we manage to save this magnificent structure. I can very strongly see it's 7 of 9. I think you can probably argue a bit of the 8th as well for some of the artistic merit in the balconies, if you're to look at them closer. So hopefully you haven't said what you plan on doing in this report, if you're going to listen to it or ignore it or tear it down or what's going on. There's no indication on what the plans are. I'd really like to know what Infrastructure Ontario is thinking.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. Yeah, I can try to address that question. So far, the report is basically being done for the due diligence as part of like the really early stages of the project planning. So it's fundamentally being completed to really understand exactly and identify, specifically what the heritage value of the property is. So at the moment, it's basically just gathering that information as the baseline of knowledge. As I mentioned before, the development concept for the property still needs to evolve. So we're not really at that stage yet to talk about the development concept because it's so early in the development process. But what this report will do, it will feed into the eventual heritage impact assessment that will also come later as a separate document. So the heritage impact assessment will basically use this share and the identification of its heritage attributes in first its assessment of the proposed development concept when it comes to fruition, and also to develop like any mitigation measures that to preserve the heritage in the event that any elements are lost during the redevelopment.
David, when that heritage impact assessment is done, is there a similar public engagement process as well? Will that go back to the Municipal Heritage Committee?
Yes, thanks. The HIA is to follow the city's processes, and it will have a similar engagement process as a regular HIA. So it will be submitted to the planning department, and it will be reviewed by the Heritage Committee as would any HIA for development. So there would be the engagement portion with the city and the Heritage Committee.
Any further questions from our membership? Any additional feedback that you'd like to see in the reports? If there's none, I need a mover and a seconder to receive today's delegations.
I see Andrew Douglas and I see Graham Carroll.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed to receiving that? Seeing none, that item is carried. So thank you, gentlemen, for those presentations today. We really do appreciate you taking the time to outline those for us. And it was very significant reports that were done. So thank you very much. We now move on to item 8.1 is our staff presentation, recommendation to designate 1166 Gardner Road West in Ancaster, which is the Shaver Homestead under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, PED 24026. So we have Scott Dickinson is here to give us a presentation.
All right, good morning. Oh, good afternoon, everyone. This is item 8.1, report PED 24026, the recommendation to designate 1166 Gardner Road West, Ancaster, otherwise known as the Shaver Homestead. This property is located on the, This property is located on the southern side of Gardner Road West, between the intersections of Gardner Road and McClure Road to the east, and with Wilson Street West to the west. This property was first surveyed for heritage interest in the 1970s by the Ancaster LACAC. In October of 2023, staff received a designation request from the property owner, and in November of 2023, staff conducted a site visit, which led to the current report. This is a rather complex property, so we've prepared a context slide to help explain what's going on. The property consists of 11 structures, 9 of which have been identified as having cultural heritage value or interest. Starting from the 9 o'clock position, we have structure 1, which is an 1830s wood frame structure, the original farmhouse for the property, which was moved in the 1850s to its current location and converted into a carriage house. Structure 2 at 11 o'clock is its replacement, the 1856 brick farmhouse, which incorporates a portion of the original frame farmhouse as a rear summer kitchen. Structure 3 is a brick bakehouse, also built 1856, out of spare bricks from the construction of the brick farmhouse. Structures 4 and 5 are an outhouse and a smokehouse, respectively, both built in the mid-19th century. Structure 6 is a 2-story ice house built circa 1875. Structure 7 is a 1920 freestanding milk house. And then we go slightly out of order here because all the way around at about the 7 o'clock position is structure 8, which is a 1837 three-bay bank barn, which has had several additions, a main floor stable, a silo, and a concrete milk house over the course of the first half of the 19th century. And then, of course, structure 9 at the 6 o'clock position is a horse barn dating to around 1871. Structures 10 and 11 are metal siding sheds, which were built circa 1955. We do not consider 10 or 11 to be of cultural heritage value or interest at this time. We recommend designation for this property under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, as it does meet 7 of the 9 criteria laid out in Regulation 9-06. The property has physical value, as these 9 structures contribute to its value as a rare and representative example of an extant 19th century Ontario farmstead. The 1856 brick farmhouse also has design value, as it is a representative example of the neoclassical style of architecture as applied to a rural dwelling. Some of the hallmark features of the neoclassical style include its symmetrical facade, its rectangular floor plan, the low-pitched gable roof with return eaves, the quarter circle or quarter pie windows in the gable ends, which are very indicative of this style, and the central entrance with the projecting frontispiece. This 1856 farmhouse also displays a high degree of craftsmanship through its use of dichromatic brick decorations on the quoins and the voussoirs over the windows. Pardon me. In the projecting frontispiece around the central entrance, and then the carved brackets and fluted columns that surround the front door and its surrounding sidelights and transom, as well as the west side porch at the rear of the structure, which is not pictured here, which demonstrates elaborate scroll work, chamfered posts, and curved roof supports. This property also has historical value. It is directly associated with the Shaver family, one of the primary settlement families, which helps shape the historical trajectory of the community of Ancaster. This community traces its roots to John Shaver, who emigrated to the Ancaster area in 1789. Of John's 10 children, his second son, William, purchased the subject property in 1811. William was also instrumental in founding the Bethesda United Church just down the road in 1825. Among William's many children, they were involved in constructing both this property, both the structures on this property and on several other Shaver family properties nearby. And in fact, the subject property remains in the possession of a direct descendant of William Shaver to the present day. The property also has the potential to yield information that contributes to an understanding of Ancaster as a community. The extended Shaver family, who now lives across North America, remain connected to one another through their stewardship of the Shaver Family Cemetery, which is very close to this property. The family maintains a newsletter, a website, and has regular family reunions at this property. And again, these reunions have brought together Shavers from all over North America. And of course, this property has contextual value. It is important in defining the historic rural and agricultural character of the surrounding area. It emphasizes the long-settled family farms which formerly dominated this stretch of Garner Road West. The ornamental features of the brick farmhouse and this complex of 19th century working buildings are visually distinctive. They create a strong contrast with the surrounding modern commercial and industrial development. This property is functionally, visually, and historically linked to its surroundings. A farmstead built to work the surviving surrounding farmland. It is on its original location and close to 3 other designated structures, all of which have strong connections to the Shaver family. Pardon me. Namely, these are 1028 and 1034 Garner Road West, 2 Shaver family homes, and the Shaver family cemetery across the street at 1156 Wilson Street West. And this property is also considered to be a local landmark. It has been featured in a series of publications about Ancaster's history, in a collection of heritage homes in the Hamilton area, a roadside tour of Ancaster Township, And it was one of the properties that was featured as a engraving in the 1859 Surtees map of Wentworth County. Those foregoing criteria are summarized here. The full version of this statement of cultural heritage value or interest is, of course, in Appendix B of Report 24026. If council were to designate this property, this following list of heritage attributes would inform the writing of a designation bylaw. Firstly, these key attributes that embody the physical value of this property include the 1830s frame house with its side gable roof, wooden windows, and loyalist doors, the 1856 brick house with its side gable roof with returned eaves and quarter circle windows, the red brick facades and use of dichromatic brick decoration, the central projecting frontispiece, the carved door surrounds, and the side lights and transoms on the front entrance, the 1830s frame structure at rear with the west and east side porches and their decorations, the 1856 brick bakehouse with its materials and structure, as well as its interior surviving brick hearth and bake oven, the two-story 1875 frame ice house with its construction and its materials, the circa 1835 dairy barn, along with its various additions, the concrete milk house and the silo from the first half of the 20th century, and the 1871 horse barn with its style and materials and use of construction. These key attributes that embody its contextual value, as the property is a defining feature of the character of Garner Road West and its links to its surroundings, include the siding and massing of the 9 historic farmstead structures, as listed here, and the location of the property fronting onto Garner Road West with a deep setback from the road. And of course, we open it up for questions from the members.
Thank you very much for that, Scott. Do we have questions on the presentation? Go ahead, Graham.
Once again, Scott, a great job. Thank you very much for doing this for us. Really appreciate it. I am a little curious, though. We have no interior features listed, but there's some amazing interior features in the house. Was there a reason for that?
Typically, we do not designate interior features unless requested to by the owner. Having spoken with the owner and met with her on multiple occasions, she is happy with designating the structures themselves without getting into interior features, except for the bake oven in the 1856 bakehouse, which survives pretty well intact.
Oh, that's a shame because that staircase is so unusual. I'd love to see if we can preserve some of those features. Thank you.
Go ahead, Alyssa.
Through the chair, Alyssa Golden, Cultural Heritage Program Lead. Just to elaborate on Scott's response, so we are technically allowed to or able to designate interior features, but as he alluded to, currently we don't necessarily designate interior features unless there's a very strong heritage value or interest associated with them and the owner is interested in designating them. This is mostly related to challenges of actually monitoring and being able to regulate changes inside of a home without being able to properly inspect it. So we do have a number of properties across the city that do have interior designated features, but again, unless specifically requested or unless there's a strong argument or there's some sort of public component to being able to access those, we typically would not recommend that.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Are there any other questions, comments? Seeing none. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation?
I see Karen and I see Councillor Cratch.
And as we move to vote on receiving, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried, and we move on to the report. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the recommendations on the floor? And so that recommendation is that the city clerk be directed to give notice of council's intention to designate 1166 Garner Road West in Ancaster, the Shaver Homestead, shown in Appendix A, attached to report PD 24026, as a property of cultural heritage value pursuant to the provisions of Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, in accordance with the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest and description of heritage attributes attached as Appendix B to report PD 24026, and subject to our standard clauses.
So I see Andrew Douglas and I see Stefan.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Under consent items, we have 9.1, 9.2, 9.3. May I have a mover and a seconder to receive those items?
I see Graham and I see Councillor Craig.
Are there any questions in regards to those meeting notes and items under consent? Seeing none, as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? That item is carried. Under discussion items, we now have 10.1 is our monthly report on proactive listings for the Municipal Heritage Register, February 2024, PD 24044. May I have a mover and a seconder to put the report on the floor?
Oops, I see Karen and I see Councillor Craig.
And the recommendation that is before us is that staff be directed to list the following properties on the Municipal Heritage Register as non-designated properties that council believes to be of cultural heritage value or interest, as outlined in report PD 24044 in accordance with Section 27 of the Ontario Heritage Act. Those properties are 657 King Street East in Hamilton, Ward 3, and 665 to 667 King Street East in Hamilton, Ward 3. Are there any questions or comments? If not, we'll now move on to vote on those recommendations before us. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. We now have a notice of motion. So at this point, as chair, I will relinquish the chair to Karen to introduce the notice of motion. And I will request the vote to waive the rules.
Thank you. So who will second the motion to waive the rules? I see Councillor Gretsch. Thank you. And now we'll vote on the motion to waive the rules. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, so that's carried. We'll move on to the motion. Alyssa, please proceed.
Okay, and I think Madam Clerk is going to be putting that motion on the screen. So we have received some correspondence from the ACO in regards to this item. It's correspondence to support an extension of the deadline in subsection 2716 of the Ontario Heritage Act with respect to the removal of listed non-designated properties from the Municipal Heritage Register. So whereas since January 1st, 2023, the City of Hamilton, sorry. Oh, that's okay. Oh, no problem. There we go. All right. So whereas subsection 2716 of Ontario Heritage Act stipulates that any non-designated heritage property listed on the Municipal Register of Properties as of December 31st, 2022 shall be removed from the Municipal Register on or before January 1st, 2025 if the Council of the municipality does not give a notice of intention to designate the property under subsection 29(1) of the Ontario Heritage Act on or before January 1st, 2025. Whereas since January 1st, 2023, the City of Hamilton staff and members of the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee have been diligently working to review the Municipal Heritage Register and the heritage value and interest of its non-designated properties, determine which properties may be candidates for individual designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act and should be prioritized for evaluation for designation before they are delisted, develop a strategy for reviewing the remaining listed properties of heritage interest as part of the potential heritage conservation districts for designation under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, and hire and train additional staff to undertake the required steps to review the high priority properties and bring forward recommendations for designation. Whereas the above noted work involving over 2,300 listed properties in the City of Hamilton is extremely time consuming and cannot be completed by December 31st, 2024 with the limited municipal resources available. Whereas the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee wishes to advise City Council of receipt of communication issued by the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, the ACO, on February 12th, 2024. Whereas this communication calls local municipalities together in response to request revisions to the Ontario Heritage Act under the Ontario Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act, as issued by the ACO in a letter to Premier Doug Ford dated February 8th, 2024, as attached. And therefore be it resolved that the Mayor send a letter to Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, and Michael Ford, Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism, requesting that subsection 27:16 of the Ontario Heritage Act be amended to extending the deadline to 5 years from January 1st, 2025 to January 1st, 2030.
Are there any questions from the members regarding the motion? Okay, we will now vote on the motion before us. Is there anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you. Alyssa will now assume the chair.
Thank you, everyone. We now move on to the general information and other business. So we have our 13.1 as buildings and landscapes. Before we go through the properties, are there any additions to the list or any deletions that anyone would like to propose? Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, with the threat of the Fireman's Memorial not being built anymore, they could probably remove the Dunnington Grub Gardens from the list in Gage Park.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I see Andrew Douglas, and if I may, through the chair, could you repeat the property again, please?
The Dunnington Grub Gardens is part of Gage Park. I'll look up the address right now. 1000 Main Street East.
Graham, do you have the item number just on the list, just to help us? Oh, there it, no. Oh, there it is. So under properties of yellow, and it's XIII. Yeah. Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? No? You got your seconder, and we'll vote to remove. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Just another note, we have two properties that do not have anyone that's monitoring them at the moment. So we have 1155 and 1157 Beach Boulevard, which is the Beach Canal Lighthouse and Cottage. We also have 50 to 54 Sanders Boulevard, which is the Binkley property. Do we have any of our members that would like to take those on?
Should we build mine in as well?
We'll maybe treat that as a separate, yeah. So, well, I guess we could. So Karen, would you like to bring forward your comment as well?
Thank you. Since we're talking about reassignment or taking on new properties, there are 4 items within Ancaster area that I would ask if someone else would like to take them on. That would be much appreciated. They're under A 1 to 3 and section D number 1, which is actually 3 properties, but they're really close together. And that would be much appreciated if perhaps one of our new members would like to take it on. Thank you.
So that leaves us with 6 properties that need.
And I believe that Councillor Crutch has raised his hand.
Okay. Councillor Crouch, go ahead.
All my comments are about a bunch of other items on the list, so I'll just wait till you're done with this, and I'm happy to go next.
If I may, through the chair, just ask for some clarification. It's the red list, 1 to 3, and the yellow list, 1 to 3? No, my apologies. The red list, 1 to 3, and in the black list, the very last section. It's just one, which is 442, 450, and 452 Wilson Street East in Ancaster. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any current members that would like to monitor those properties?
I see Stefan.
Stefan, would you
Chair,
take?
that's 372 Butter Road to 398 Wilson Street East. Is that what we're talking about?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah, I can, I won't be able to see them as much as I would like to, but I can do that. I can do those three.
Would you like to take on that fourth one, which is under the properties of Black? So that's the 442, 450, and 452 Wilson Street East.
440.
So it's on the end of our list of properties under Black.
Sure. Oh, I see it. Okay. Yeah. All right. I can do that.
Thank you, Stefan. Really appreciate that. Okay. So that leaves those other two properties, Beach Canal Lighthouse and 50 to 54 Sanders. If we have no members to take those, I will add those to my list. I will review those. All right. Councillor Kretsch, go ahead.
Thanks. So I'm monitoring a bunch of properties and I want to sort of update, a couple updates and then some questions for staff about those properties. Then we need some report backs on a few of them. And then wanted to speak a little bit about what the plans are with the Ward 2 Heritage Council, where that's at, just so people know what's going on and what they can hope to see in the future with that. So starting 52 Charlton Avenue West and 66 to 68 Charlton Avenue West, walked by those a few times since our last meeting and noticed that there's some missing windows and not really sure if that's going to impact water leakage issues, other kinds of things. I'm wondering if staff can follow up with the owners about those. It doesn't appear that the windows are secured and not sure what the state of the wood that's kind of covering some of those windows is. Some appears to be interiorly placed, some appears to be exteriorly placed. And so it looks like, from what I can tell in those buildings, it looks like there could be a lot of water getting in when it rains or when there's precipitation or melting. So I want to start there.
Through the chair, again, Alyssa Golden, Cultural Heritage Program Lead. Be helpful to just confirm, because I know there's a couple of properties with active applications. There's also some vacant properties along that stretch that are being monitored proactively by our colleagues in municipal law enforcement. So we can confirm the extent of which of those properties you're referring to, because if it is one of the, if it's 56, for example, there are active building permits, so they might be in the scope of conducting that work. So happy to communicate with the councillor offline to confirm those details.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's from 52 right the way to 68, where I was taking pictures. And yeah, if we could confirm those things, and I think it's maybe useful to put all those on the registry at some point once we hear back from you. On the registry, pardon me, I mean on the list we're watching, the watch list. Once we've heard back from you at the next meeting, just to make sure we know what we're looking at and what should be watched. So thanks for that. Also wanted to speak about 120 Park Street North. So based on just a bit of preliminary research, I think that there were some issues with the two little dormers on top of the building a while back. And then in 2019, looks like there was some reconstruction done and now they're kind of in a point of construction. I'm wondering if we can get a status from the owner about where things are at with this building, because it's been in various disrepair and repair over the last 4 or 5 years. And I just don't know enough about this and think it may be time to check in here about what the future of the property looks like.
Through the chair, staff would be happy to connect. I do, if I remember correctly, I believe there was a fire and then they've been going through the process of actually remedying the property, and you're correct, it has been open for quite some time in the upper stories. So staff are happy to connect with our colleagues in building to confirm that status and to follow up.
Thank you. Next is about 4 Turner Avenue, wondering if there's any way to update about why that was put on the list. I just don't know, and that's my own ignorance, and I apologize for that. But having been by, I don't know why it's on the list. I'm happy for it to remain. Does anyone know why or remember why?
Through the chair, if I may, I believe there was a application for severance and to develop the southern part, but maintain the historic building. That was the reason for the property to be listed on the register. If I recall correctly, staff have been working with the owners to review the proposed plans and to assess the impacts of that proposed severance and new build. I believe that was the reason why it was added to the watch list.
Thanks. One last update for me, and then I'm going to ask for a motion on one thing. Cannon Knitting Mills. So I just wanted to give people a sense of what is happening with the Cannon Knitting Mills. So I was recently a meeting of the BNA, Beasley Neighborhood Association, and the owner came forward to talk about their plans and brought forward a bunch of drawings and things. And there's now right now a conversation happening with respect to the design and parking in the alleyway there. So residents remain opposed to the city selling off the public alleyway adjacent to the heritage property, and the owner appears to continue to be trying to make that happen. Right now, that appears to be a small wrinkle before this is actually going to go ahead, apparently, to a site application process and some actual building taking place there. So I just wanted to let people know that that's what's happening with that property, that it looks like it's finally starting to proceed. There's been some more active presentations from the developer to the neighborhood, so just letting everyone know that that's a potential thing coming down the road. My only question for staff, I think out of this, or a motion out of this, is about 98, I think it is, James Street South, the former James Street Baptist Church, where there was a fire. And I'm really thinking we need to step in here as a city. So I'm not sure what the wording of my motion will be exactly, but there was a fire. The city's obligations are to go to investigate the fire. The fire department's obligations are to control the fire. But we don't have any jurisdiction with respect to whether or not there's been damage to that. What the report back on that will be, that's all to the owner. I have attempted to speak to the owner about a number of issues in the property, including the state of the back lot, it being severely overgrown, lots of debris, security of the fencing that's there, maintenance of the sidewalk and other adjacent things, structures that were put there previously by previous owners that haven't been maintained by the current owner, including the hoarding on the street and the signage that's all there. So I think at this point, I'm looking to staff for a bit of assistance, but I think we really need to step in here and whatever formal mechanisms we have to take action to remedy these situations. If the owner's not going to be responsive, then we just have to go in and clean up and maintain the property and ensure it's being kept safe until it actually gets developed.
Through the chair, so I can advise staff were able to get in touch with the owners this week to discuss, try to get some confirmation on the extent of damage from the fire. They did do their own visual inspection. It did seem minor in their opinion. However, they have reached out to their consulting engineers, which are engineers with professional experience with heritage buildings, who had been doing the monitoring reports on this property over the past few years. So they are actively coordinating for them to come out on site and confirm the condition of the building following the fire, and to also address the required monitoring and condition reports through the heritage permit approval. I can also confirm that we spoke with our colleagues in municipal law enforcement, who did confirm that the site was secured following the fire. There were some concerns in terms of openings in the building and access on site, so that has been confirmed to be secured. They also indicated that they'd be following up with coordinating contractors for cleaning of some of the immediate debris following that work. And then I'll also just note that the current heritage permit approval, conditional approval, is set to expire, if I recall off the top of my head, March 31st, 2024. And as you may remember, we had approved as a city an extension to the previous heritage permit to allow the new owners to do some additional due diligence in terms of a new proposal for the site. And there was an expectation to see some progress on that. We did advise that we are expecting to see that progress before considering another extension of that heritage permit. So that has been communicated to the owners, and we are hopeful also that when their consultant engineers are called out to the site that we can also attend, so we as staff can get a better idea of what is happening on the site as well. So that's, I guess, in summary, in terms of where we are at as heritage staff in terms of the property.
That's helpful. I wanted just to add a couple things to that. Number one, they haven't been submitting their monitoring reports on time as they said they would. Can you confirm that?
Through the chair, that's correct. We have been asking for the updated monitoring reports regularly. They did provide a number of updates before the last heritage permit extension was issued last year, but we are waiting for receipt of the outstanding reports.
Right. And so would you recommend that we bring this back in timing of the heritage permit approval, bring something back as a motion? Or, like, I understand your position completely and the hopefulness, and I appreciate your hopefulness. Right now, we're in a situation of a custody and legacy issue. It's been many, many years of this property kind of degrading. Again, the backlot not being taken care of, and not being secured, it not being maintained properly, reports not being sent in, and us trying to give the benefit of the doubt to every successive new owner that comes forward. Meanwhile, the property still exists, right? The property is still something that's suffering as we continue to turn over hands and give new people the benefit of the doubt. And from my perspective, I haven't seen the evidence, outside of optimism, I haven't seen the evidence that this is being taken care of in the way it should be. So I'm looking to you, I guess, for the advice about whether now is the time to do some more enforcement, to take more proactive steps under the Heritage Act that we can, or if we should wait to do that closer to the expiration of the current permit.
Through the chair, so I mean, it would be up to this committee's discretion in terms of what kind of motion you might want to move. I'm just thinking through in terms of provisions of the Heritage Act versus Building Code Act, property standards bylaw, what would be the appropriate next steps? And I don't know if I have that answer off the top of my head, but I think it's definitely worth further conversation to understand what would be appropriate, and staff are happy to chat through that. In terms of the timing, we did stress the timing of the upcoming expiry of the current permit to the owners. That's really not that far away, so I would think that if there was a desire to bring forward a motion, potentially at the March meeting, that might make sense.
Makes perfect sense to me. I'll send you an email shortly about that. We can figure out the right wording and bring something forward more formally so everyone here has a chance to look at it, because I think time's of the essence here. Now we're having fires, and, you know, again, not seeing that willingness from the owner I had hoped for in terms of, again, cleaning up the property, ensuring that it's secured and so on. So happy to bring it forward next time. Thanks, Alyssa. My last point is just about briefly the Ward 2 Heritage Council. So I just wanted to let people know that we had about 15 or 16 people apply to join, which is a lot. And our goal is to be as inclusive as possible and get as many folks on this committee as we can. So I think in the end, we'll end up with something close to that number joining the committee. And one of the things I think we'll be doing is looking just broadly at all the heritage assets in Ward 2 and talking about those. Some of that may inform me coming back to this committee with a long list of additions to the active listings that we're watching. I think there are some properties that aren't on the list that ought to be, and I think having people in various neighborhoods come forward with some of their ideas will help inform me of what's going on. If people don't know, there are thousands of heritage assets in Ward 2. I think I have that right anyways, and Alyssa can correct me if I'm wrong, but there's more than people might know. And in neighborhoods where, frankly, it might not be obvious, but Beasley, for instance, having a lot of heritage assets. I think we think of Durand as having the only neighborhood to maybe have a lot of significant heritage assets, but in fact, around Ward 2, there's quite a number. So just broadening this out, broadening the discussion to a larger group, and truly trying to think about this more holistically. If Ward 2 is the place where we have a significant number of heritage assets, I think we have to think about those assets broadly, and bring as many people from as many neighborhoods into that conversation as possible. This isn't really the forum for that, which is why I'm trying to do something informally through the Heritage Council to get people together and start thinking about this a bit differently. So if there are things I can bring here, I will, but largely it's separate. I just wanted to let people know since I'd mentioned it at the last meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. That's great. And actually, 15 to 16 people, that's a fantastic application turnout, so that's great. Do we have any other property updates that we need to do? I see Karen and Graham, so Karen, go ahead.
Thank you, through the chair. I just have one property update, which is 64 Hat Street in Dundas. You may recall last summer it was put up for sale for $14 million, and I'm not sure if it was withdrawn, but it is currently, just brought to my attention that it's now listed again for $12.95, if anyone is interested in a lovely big property. And that is designated now, which is great. I find that, yeah, sets my mind at ease. And also, just to say, Alyssa, when you were reallocating 50 to 54 Sanders Boulevard, I can take that. I can. That would be fine for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So if we can just have the clerk to acknowledge that, so that'll be Karen. Okay. Thank you, Karen. Graham, you're next.
Yeah, that's my old favorite, the former St. Giles on the corner of Holton and Main Street. Once again, a couple of not so much break-ins this time, but ripping off the protection on the windows, a lot of litter, the usual complaints from the neighbors. The United Church of Canada through Kindred Works has been reacting a little bit quicker, but still there's times where that building's unsecure and we're getting really nervous with the potential for fire from unauthorized entries. So hopefully we can get that under. And I do have a question with the two new buildings on King Street we just added. Are you going to add them to the watch list as well, or is that not necessary?
Through the chair, so that would be up to the committee's discretion. So from staff's perspective, we were made aware that one of the properties was up for sale, being advertised for prime redevelopment along the LRT. So wanting to get those at least listed on the register proactively. But if this committee would like to also monitor that on your watch list, that would be up to your discretion to move a motion for that.
Oh, I wouldn't mind taking those two on. Have fond memories of the Carlton Tavern. Generally speaking, those fun times there.
Through the chair, if I can ask for clarification, Graham, what are you hoping to add to the list, please?
The two we just added to the register today. Of course, I can't add the numbers offhand, so someone there will have it.
Yeah, I've got it. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't realize what you were talking about. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's just in yellow, of course.
So that'll be 665 to 667 King Street East. So Graham, you'll take those?
I'll add them to my file.
Okay. So so you've put forward the motion. Do we have a seconder to add those properties to our watch list? The councillor's put up his hand. So is there anyone opposed to adding those? Seeing none, that item is added. Are there any other updates for our property list? So I see Stefan and Councillor Crutch. Go ahead, Stefan.
Through the chair. So two of the properties I'm watching, it's red. I believe it's number 9. It's 8092 Barton Street East, former Hammer Hands. Northeast window, top floor. The boarding that's over the window is come down, open to the elements. I don't know if that's an issue. And then the other one is 21378 Main Street East, Cathedral Boys School. There's just a large accumulation of litter or trash on the property now. I don't know if that's also an issue, but yeah, I just wanted to bring those 2 points up. That's all.
That's great. Thank you for those updates. And Councillor Crutch, go ahead.
Thanks. I just wanted to be transparent about something else I'd completely forgotten about. I know it's that Graham is the one watching this property, but it's in Ward 2. 84 York Boulevard, the Philpott Memorial Church. And again, apologies for not being able to come to the last meeting, but it was scheduled directly at the same exact time as a council meeting was happening, so I couldn't come in. But I wanted to let people know the developer has reached out to me, and others have reached out to me about this property. And appears based on the emails and things they've sent me that they're looking to try and get a bit of a deferral here for some more time to try and work out a proposal of some kind. That's best I can say. And so it'll come to the planning committee on February 23rd. That's when this is scheduled to come. And so I just wanted to let everyone here know that whatever transpires at the planning committee, I'm going to try and direct that activity back here first, right? So that everyone here can have a chance to weigh in on whatever is discussed before it then goes back to the planning committee again. So just want to let everyone know that that's my commitment to you. So not to worry that this is going to suddenly go to the planning committee and something's going to happen there and people are going to be, wait a minute, we didn't know what was happening. Any discussions or anything that comes out of that activity will come back here the best I can make it happen.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor. Do we have any questions in regards to that item? Do we have any additional updates? Seeing none, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the property updates today?
I see Stefan and I see the councillor.
And as we vote on the motion to receive, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Thank you, everyone. We're now going to move on to our last item, which is 13.2, which is our Ontario Heritage Week. So I'm going to pass the chair over to Karen so I can give an update just on Heritage Week. So next week marks Ontario Heritage Week, so from February 19th to the 25th. So it's a great opportunity for the city to celebrate all that we have in heritage. So there's a lot of different things that are going on, and so we want to make sure that people know about Heritage Week, that they're participating in all of the great things that are happening. There's a heritage tree exhibit by Lesha McCrecky at the tourism office at the Lister Block. There's lots of great things going on at the municipal museums across the city. Then an event that is coming up on Saturday, February 24th, the city and the Hamilton Wentworth Heritage Association are hosting Heritage Day. It's going to be at the Dundurn Coach House, and that's going to be starting at, is it 1 o'clock, I believe, that's starting. But there'll be lots of great presentations, and there's going to be talks. There's going to be archaeological excavations and site expansion at Griffin House National Historic Site. So Carolyn Samko will be there to give a talk. Understanding Monuments and Markers, videos and presentation by Travis Hill. Points of Pride by Marissa Burris. Then Alyssa and myself are going to be talking about the effects of the provincial legislation on built heritage inventories. And then Alyssa Gamori is going to be talking about reenacting the reenactment at the bringing Stony Creek back to life, and then there'll be the announcement for the famous Hamiltonian 2024 contest. So that's an event to look forward to. If anybody would like to join this, it's open invitation for Heritage Day at Dundurn that day. Then with Heritage Day, I guess it's just something that we should celebrate. We've been having our heritage boards. We've been going through those lists. Those selections have been made. We're gearing up as the education working group to have our celebration and awards presentations in June of 2024. So there'll be more information to come. But the thing with Heritage Day always marks the kickoff of our new nominations. So when we have that event on February 24th, we'll be announcing that kickoff, open nominations across the city. Everyone can apply online and give those recommendations for our newest winners for the following year. So lots to celebrate with Heritage Week and to bring attention to our heritage properties and our heritage landscapes in the city. So that's just a little bit of an update on that regards. While we're talking in regards to heritage items, would we like to discuss the Ontario Heritage Conference? Graham, did you wish to make any comment?
Yes, thank you. As you know, I've attended a few of these over the years, and I've quite enjoyed them, learned a lot. Got some good networking from some of the events, learning what the other areas do and how they handle stuff. We were always a little bit ahead of most municipalities with our registry. Most people did not use them like we did. I was very surprised to find out. But this year, I kind of like to recommend we send the entire committee, because I think we should put a proposal to host one of these heritage events coming up. And by everyone attending, we got an idea of what exactly the workload is going to be, which is pretty important. There is a lot of work, and I think it's about time that we re-hosted this event.
Through the chair, so a couple of things. First, the chair pointed out before the meeting that the conference is, excuse me, slightly overlapping with the Heritage Awards night on June 13th. So just keep that in mind in terms of availability and who might be volunteering for that. We, I think, need to confirm perhaps how many members are interested in attending, so we can then cross-reference that with available budget. So perhaps it would be appropriate to maybe amongst the committee identify which members are interested in attending to see if it is all of them or not, and then we can confirm budget-wise who we're able to send.
So we could have an item to come back to our next meeting with more information. Graham, do you have any follow-up questions in regards to that, or?
No, that makes sense. We gotta work within our budgets. We know budgets are tight, and this is for us an expensive request, but I think it's going to be a very worthwhile one if we are going to host it.
So I think that's our update for Ontario Heritage Week.
Okay. May I have a motion to receive the updates? I see Graham and I see Stefan. And are there any opposed? Okay, seeing none, that item is carried.
Before adjournment, do we have a staff update?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'd like to introduce two new staff with us today. So we have Dawn Cordero, who is the new Cultural Heritage Planner, so filling in for Lisa Christie while she's on leave. And we have Marissa Barris, who's here, who's replacing or backfilling Meg's planning technician position that she was in previously. So Marissa will be doing similar work as Scott in terms of research and evaluation for designations. And I'm not sure if either of you want to give a quick hello.
Hello. You may remember me from the Points of Pride point that you brought up. It's me. Hello, I'm Dawn. I'm excited to be working with the city.
Well, welcome to you both. There's plenty of work that has been waiting for you. So no, that's great. Congratulations on those positions, and we look forward to. Welcome. And then before adjournment, are there any other updates? Any new business? I would like to highlight, we are celebrating Black History Month. If anyone has the opportunity, there's a beautiful display out at City Hall as well as at the Hamilton Public Libraries, just recognizing a lot of historic members of our Hamilton community that are very deserving of acknowledgement. So it's a beautiful display that's been put together. So I encourage everyone, if they get a chance, to have a look at that. If there's no other new items, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I see Andrew Douglas and I see Stefan.
And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. And Madam Clerk, before we go, do you have an update for our next meeting date?
No, I do not.
Okay, we'll get that sent out.
Absolutely, yes, I'll be working with Matt Gauthier on that.
Okay, sounds good. And welcome to Matt if he's online and listening to us. Matt will be back with us next month. So thanks very much, everyone, and we will see you in